I was standing in my wedding dress, bouquet still clutched in my hands, when I got the text that changed everything. "You're fired. Consider it my gift to you." Those 8 words, sent by the boss's son, the man who'd made my life miserable, burned into my eyes like acid. I should have been celebrating the happiest day of my life. Instead, in that moment, I knew I was about to walk through fire. Before I share how this story unfolds, before I reveal how I turned the cruelest betrayal into the sweetest victory, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell. Too many people listen and miss future stories because the algorithm passes them by. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this revenge plays out. My name is Waverly Abrams, and on the day I said I do, I was also told I was finished. Imagine the scene. Soft light streaming through stained glass windows, flower petals floating in the vestibule air, the taste of champagne still on my lips. Guests were laughing in the other room, music drifting. And then my phone buzzed. Just a quick glance, a half laugh expecting some last-minute congratulations. But there it was, a message dripping with arrogance from Tate Lawson. Tate, my new boss, the company owner's golden boy, the spoiled son who'd stumbled through division after division at Crescent Design Studio until finally his father decided to plant him where I worked, project management, where I thrived. Or I had, right up until Tate arrived. He didn't like me from day one. He didn't like how his father, Gregory, leaned on me. He didn't like that I could run circles around him in meetings. Actually, maybe he just didn't like competence in general, because it made his incompetence shine brighter. Tate was handsome in that unfair, jawline and slick hair kind of way, but with eyes that promised nothing but trouble. Privilege without responsibility. Charm without substance. Still, I'd kept my head down. I did my work. I led with precision and heart. I'd been at Crescent for 2 years, and in that short time, I built something no one else had. An entire proprietary system. Imagine a living, breathing machine in software form. Every project milestone, every budget line, every client preference, every blueprint revision. It was mine. My brain made visible. And it worked. Deadlines shrank, client satisfaction soared. For a while, Gregory told anyone who would listen I was the best investment Crescent ever made, which of course made Tate hate me more. At first, his hostility was quiet, canceling my trainings, forgetting to copy me on important emails. But slowly it escalated, taking credit for designs or systems I'd proposed, excluding me entirely from dig meetings. He thought if he iced me out long enough, I'd fade into the background. He underestimated me, undercalculated me. Mistake number 1. And then came mistake number 2, the text. "You're fired. Consider it my gift to you." My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped my bouquet. All around me, the world looked the same. People laughing, rose petals scattering, the faint scent of lilies. But inside, something cracked. I spent years being the dependable one, the meticulous worker, the one who saved the company time and money. And now, in a few smug words, my entire career had been snatched away. I showed my new husband, Karen. He surprised me. No anger, no theatrics. Just a smile and a kiss on the knuckles. "Check your messages later. Today belongs to us." How could he be so calm while I felt like I was free-falling? The dress suddenly itched, the air grew heavy, my vision blurred. I wanted to scream, to crash through those stained glass windows, but Karen's eyes anchored me. Steady, assured. Eyes that said, "Trust me. Wait." That night, as we spun around the dance floor to the song we picked for our first dance, Nima, my maid of honor, rushed over breathless. "Waverly, your phone won't stop." In her hand was a glowing screen, 108 missed calls. I froze. My blood ran cold when I saw the names. Office, coworkers, and 17 from one particular number. Gregory Lawson, the man who'd built Crescent, Tate's father. I stumbled into the bridal suite, lifted the phone, pressed play on his voicemail. His voice cracked with urgency. "Waverly, call me immediately. Tate had no authority to fire you. There's been a terrible mistake. We need you. The downtown project submission is Monday, and no one can access your system. The desperation bled from every syllable, and that's when it hit me with a dizzying rush. Tate hadn't just fired me. He'd detonated a bomb inside his own company. Because the system was mine. Only I knew it. Projects worth millions, weeks from collapse. No one else could run it, thanks to Tate canceling every training session I had tried to launch. I stood there, tool pooling around my feet, phone pressed to my ear, heart hammering. And for the first time that day, I didn't feel fired. I didn't feel powerless. I felt something else entirely. Power. And with that realization, I knew my wedding day firing wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of revenge.
I didn't sleep that night. Not a single wink. The reception ended with cheers, smiles, champagne, dancing, and messy hugs, but my heart was weighed down like I'd swallowed stones. When Karen and I finally fell into the hotel suite bed, I stared up at the ceiling, chest tight, the echo of Gregory's voicemails still rattling in my skull. "We need you." He'd said it more than once. The powerful Gregory Lawson, the man who had built Crescent from a rented office and a handful of drafting tables, reduced to pleading. It should have made me feel vindicated, but lying there between silk sheets, makeup faded, hair falling loose, all I felt was a gnawing hunger mixed with unease. I kept replaying the moment I'd read Tate's text, the sour burn in my lungs, the world tilting sideways while rose petals floated through the church air. It was supposed to be the day I stepped into joy, into a new life with Karen, the safest, kindest man I'd ever known. Instead, I felt stolen from. I felt cornered. I felt like Tate had found a way to touch even this sacred, perfect day and stain it. Around 3 in the morning, Karen stirred beside me. "You're not sleeping," he murmured. His hand found mine under the sheets, fingers warm, firm, grounding. "How can I?" I whispered into the dark. "Everything I've worked for, gone, just like that. Gregory can beg all he wants, but what about tomorrow and the next tomorrow? It's clear I was never safe there." Karen was silent for a moment. Then he rolled toward me, eyes open in the thin glow from the streetlight sneaking past the curtains. "Waverly," he said, voice low and certain, "what if this isn't the end of something? What if it's the beginning?" I hated how his calm tangled with my panic. Beginning? I had no job. My reputation had just been torpedoed by a text message. Beginning wasn't the word that burned in my throat, but Karen steadied me with that quiet brilliance of his, the way he always did, like he knew something I didn't. "Wait," I murmured, finally. "You knew about the submissions. You said earlier Tate was cutting corners. How long have you known?" He hesitated before answering. "Long enough. Long enough to know you being fired might have actually saved you." The next morning, as sunlight poured through the window, I tried to shake the fog from my head. We were supposed to board a plane for our honeymoon by noon. Belize. Beaches, rum drinks, snorkeling. A week of bliss. But my phone still pulsed with notifications, voicemails, texts, missed calls, a chorus of desperation I couldn't escape. By noon, the call count had doubled. Gregory wasn't subtle. He begged, he pleaded, he apologized. The one that really got me said simply, "Triple your salary, just come back, please." I laughed, a strange, shaky laugh that startled even me. Triple my salary? 2 years with this company, 2 years where I put my whole self in, even as Tate clawed at my back, and now suddenly I was worth triple because the golden boy couldn't figure out how to turn a key in the lock I had built? That wasn't praise, that was fear. Karen and I lifted our suitcases and headed for the airport. Silence between us. Not angry silence, heavy, loaded silence. We checked in, boarded, buckled up. I scrolled through Gregory's latest desperate attempt, then powered my phone down. On the plane, my chest pressed hard against the tight seatbelt. What was I supposed to do? Go back, save the company, set everything right while Tate smirked in the corner office, proud of himself for showing me who was in control? No, no, no. It was them at 35,000 feet above the clouds. Karen leaned close and whispered, "Let it fall." That snapped my head toward him. What? He gazed at me, steady and sharp. Let it collapse. Crescent is a tower built on your shoulders, Waverly. But towers fall. Maybe they need to. His words sank through my panic, down into the marrow of my bones. Something bloomed there. Not rage, not despair. Something slower, steadier. Resolve. By the second day of our honeymoon, turquoise waves stretching before us, coconuts sweating in our hands, I almost was able to breathe again. The voicemails piled up, my phone buzzing constantly until I shoved it in the safe and promised myself I wouldn't touch it. Every time we passed a hammock, Karen tugged me into it until I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time since the text. But I was still restless. You don't spend years carving order out of chaos and just unplug. You don't watch your work dangled like a toy in the hands of an incompetent heir and just shrug. One evening, as the sun blazed in orange and rose across the horizon, I pulled out my tablet. Karen lay beside me, shoes off, toes dug into the sand. "Working on something?" he asked. "I think so," I murmured. The glow reflected back in his eyes. Blueprints of a new life splayed across my mind. If Crescent needed me desperately enough to beg, then the city itself probably did too. Developers, architects, municipal offices, they all swam in the same waters. If Tate was drowning them in altered, corner-cutting plans, someone needed to create a lifeline. That someone was me. By day 4, while sipping rum punch and listening to steel drums, I outlined the business structure. By day 6, I drafted my first contract proposal. By day 7, when we flew home, I wasn't an unemployed project manager anymore. I was a future founder. That's not to say it didn't sting. Oh, it stung. The ache of betrayal would flare up without warning. Sometimes at night, I'd close my eyes and see Tate's smug face, the way he strolled into meetings late, cutting me off mid-sentence. I'd hear again the click of my phone, his words, "Consider it my gift to you." Gift. That word churned my stomach, but I vowed I'd return the gift, not with fire and fury, not with destruction in the way he wanted, but with something colder, sharper. My revenge would be built brick by brick, foundation by foundation, until the house I stood in was unshakable. And Tate? He'd hear every creak. He'd feel every shadow. He'd realize the structure he once thought was his was now mine. By the time we landed back home, Gregory's begging had shifted into bargaining. Part ownership, equity, any terms I wanted. But he still didn't understand. This wasn't about money. The struggle wasn't over, the wounds still raw. But now I could see where the path twisted towards something far bigger.
The day after we got back from our honeymoon, I woke up early, poured myself some coffee, and turned on my phone. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls, text messages, voicemails, so many that the number didn't even look real. My heart raced just looking at it. Some were from Gregory, some from coworkers, even clients who had somehow found my personal number. I sat at the kitchen table and started listening to the voicemails. Each one sounded more desperate than the last. Gregory's confident tone was gone. He sounded tired, broken, even scared. "Waverly," one message began, his voice rough. "We can't access the updated designs. The city is demanding files, the clients are threatening to pull contracts, and everything's at a standstill. Please call me back. Tate doesn't know what he's doing." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The whole mess was Tate's fault, but somehow Gregory had let this happen too. He'd handed his spoiled son a position of authority, and now everything was burning around them. Part of me wanted to laugh, but the truth was, I felt a deep mix of anger and strange satisfaction.
For the first time, they truly understood how much they needed me. Karen came in, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Still going crazy, huh?" he asked, nodding toward the buzzing phone. "They can't survive without me," I said quietly. "And the real question is, do you even want them to?" His words stuck in my head. Did I? Did I want to go back and pick up the pieces like nothing had happened? To let them win by crawling back just because they were desperate? No. The answer came sharp and clear. That chapter was over. Later that day, Karen put a folder in front of me. Inside were copies of files and permit applications Tate had submitted in recent months. Karen had access through the city planning office, and he'd been paying attention. "Look at this," he said, pointing to one page. He replaced thick support beams with cheap, thinner ones. These wouldn't pass an honest inspection. He flipped another page. Here, he cut corners on foundation materials. And this one? He removed fire safety features altogether. My stomach dropped. This isn't just sloppy. This is dangerous. People could have been hurt. "Exactly," Karen said. "And he signed his name on every one of these. I've been documenting everything. Sooner or later, this was going to explode. Honestly, him firing you was the best thing that could have happened. It keeps you out of the line of fire." I stared at the papers for a long time, anger twisting inside me. Tate wasn't just sabotaging me personally, he was sabotaging public safety, families, kids. Entire communities would have been at risk if his shortcuts had been built into real structures. For the first time, I felt grateful I was out of that situation. But another feeling crept in, stronger with each passing second. Opportunity. For years, I had been the one who built Crescent systems, the one who knew how to keep every project in order. Gregory had praised me, but Tate had treated me like I was disposable. And now, the company was in shambles without me. That night, I sat on the couch with my laptop glowing in the dark. Karen leaned against me, half asleep, while I typed furiously. Ideas poured out. Business models, services, city partnerships. If Crescent was crumbling because of fraud and shortcuts, what about every other firm? How many were skating by under weak systems, hoping no one ever checked? That was the moment Precision Protocol Consulting was born. Not on paper yet, not official, but alive in my mind. A consulting firm that would partner directly with cities to uncover fraud, tighten processes, and keep everyone honest. And who better to lead it than me? I already knew both sides, how the companies worked and how the city processed permits. The next morning, I made it official. Registered the business, filed the paperwork, paid the fees. My pulse hammered in my ears when I saw the approval notice appear on my laptop. I wasn't just a fired employee anymore. I was the founder of something new. That same day, I answered Gregory's call for the first time. "Waverly?" He sounded almost winded. "I'm sorry to hear about your troubles, but I'm no longer available as an employee. I've started my own firm." He jumped in immediately. "Then hire us. Whatever your rate is, Crescent will pay it. Just help us survive." I almost laughed. "My first client is the city itself, Gregory. I'll be building new systems for them, systems meant to catch the very corner-cutting Tate has been doing." The silence on the other end was delicious. Dead air except for the faint sound of him breathing. Finally, he said, "I see." "Goodbye, Gregory," I said, and hung up. The weeks that followed were a blur. Word spread quickly once the city announced their new partnership with me. One government office led to another, one contact led to another. People loved my system because it caught problems before disasters happened. Developers grumbled, sure, but the city loved it. And slowly, contract by contract, my new company began to grow. Meanwhile, Crescent unraveled. Without me, they were like a ship without a captain, drifting straight into storms. More projects stalled, more clients left. Lawsuits started hovering. Their once bright reputation dimmed almost overnight. And then, one afternoon, a thick cream envelope landed on my desk. Inside was a handwritten letter from Gregory. His words were surprisingly humble. He admitted mistakes, he admitted Tate's arrogance, his own blindness, the crumble of their empire. And then at the bottom, he asked me one thing: to meet with them. Not to return as an employee, not to rescue them, but to consult. To see if real change was possible. I put the letter aside and sat there for a long time. Revenge had been easy at first. Ignore their calls, build my own company, watch them fall. But now I realized something deeper. Maybe revenge wasn't only destruction. Maybe the sweetest revenge was watching them rebuild under my terms, with my rules, no longer in control. For once, I had all the power, and I wanted to see how far it could go. I picked up my phone, drafted an email, and agreed to the meeting. This time, it wouldn't be me in the position of weakness. It would be them.
The day of the meeting, I stood outside Crescent's glass building for the first time in months. The same receptionist desk, the same polished marble floors, but it all felt different now. Like I wasn't walking into my former workplace, I was walking into enemy territory, where I now held the power. The receptionist smiled politely, addressed me as Miss Abrams, and walked me to the main conference room. When I stepped inside, my eyes fell on two people: Gregory Lawson, looking older and worn down, and Tate, sitting stiffly, eyes glued to the table. Gregory stood quickly. "Waverly, thank you for coming." Tate didn't move, didn't speak. Not yet. I sat across from them, keeping my expression calm, unreadable. It was Tate who finally broke the silence. "I owe you an apology," he muttered without raising his eyes. "What I did was unprofessional, cruel, and dangerous. There's no excuse." He sounded rehearsed, but his face told me the shame was real. My gaze didn't soften. "Apology noted," I said flatly. Gregory cleared his throat and pushed a folder across the table. "The company is different now. New safety systems, new oversight. Tate is no longer in leadership. We want you to see for yourself and consult. Make sure our changes are real." I flipped the folder open. It was neat, thorough, clear, surprisingly solid. But then Tate stood, walked out silently, and returned with a smaller envelope. He set it in front of me with trembling hands. Inside was a check, covering the exact cost of my wedding, every flower, every arrangement, down to the penny. "Consider it our gift back to you," Tate said softly. I felt a flash of anger. Did they think money solved everything? But before I could reply, he set down something else, a small USB drive. "This belongs to you. The system you built, the one I locked people out of, it never worked right without you. Take it, delete it, do whatever you want. It's yours." I picked it up, pinched between my fingers. My chest felt heavy. 2 years of my life, all that work, all the times I stayed late sweating over details nobody else noticed, reduced now to one tiny piece of plastic. I looked across at Tate and Gregory, one broken by his own failures, and the other humbled by the collapse of everything he'd built. And for the first time, I realized sometimes you don't have to destroy anything. Sometimes revenge arrives all on its own, without you lifting a finger. I stood, closing the folder. "I'll review your proposals, but if I agree to consult, it'll be on my terms. Triple your proposed fee, paid in advance, full access, complete transparency, and one more condition." My eyes locked on Tate. "You'll complete every single training module I assign. No shortcuts, no excuses. You'll learn project management, compliance, ethics, from the ground up." Tate's face paled, but he nodded. "Yes, I understand." Gregory hesitated only a second before saying, "Agreed." I slipped both the folder and USB into my bag and walked to the door. "Oh, and keep your check. Seeing Tate actually learn integrity will be payment enough." I left them sitting frozen at the table, my heels echoing down the hall.
What followed was the strangest partnership of my life. Precision Protocol Consulting, my firm, oversaw every Crescent project from the outside. They designed, we enforced compliance. It was odd, like working with a rival while simultaneously being in charge of them, but it worked. Within weeks, Crescent began winning back smaller contracts thanks to our structure. And Tate? He really did complete every single training I put in front of him. At first, he dragged his feet, but slowly, something shifted. I'd arrive on site early and find him already there, clipboard in hand, double-checking safety specs himself. When I tested him on procedures, he passed every time. More than that, he asked questions. Good ones. Thoughtful ones. His arrogance was cracking, replaced by something I never thought I'd see: humility. The true test came during a community presentation. Residents had gathered to grill whoever spoke on behalf of the project about safety concerns. Normally, Tate would have brushed them off, smooth-talked, or worse, lied. But instead, he stood up and admitted the truth. Some of last year's failures were mine. Mistakes were made, shortcuts that shouldn't have happened. That will never happen again. The room fell quiet. You could almost hear the shift. By the end of that presentation, people actually shook his hand, trusted him again, even if cautiously. I watched from the back and thought, maybe people can change after all. Over the next 6 months, my firm exploded with growth. We hired staff. We landed contracts not only with Crescent, but with other governments too. Soon, Precision Protocol was known as the gold standard of accountability in architecture. And Crescent? Slowly, under my oversight, it regained stability. Gregory, older and wiser now, stayed out of Tate's way, letting him learn properly. The son who once laughed at training sessions now organized them himself, making sure every engineer, every manager, every hand in the process understood exactly why rules existed. Sometimes I'd catch Tate's eyes during meetings, not defiant anymore, but grateful. The boy who fired me on my wedding day had been broken, rebuilt, and reshaped into something better. 1 year later, the downtown project, the same one that had been in ruins the day he sent that cruel text, stood proudly complete, safe, beautiful, ahead of schedule, under budget. My consulting team was praised publicly for creating a new model of trust in construction. Crescent stood beside us, their role restored, but always under my firm's shadow. On the anniversary of that firing, my phone buzzed. A text from Tate. "Thank you for your support. I won't let you down." I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "See that you don't. Some gifts can't be returned." The irony wasn't lost on me. 1 year earlier, Tate had tried to hand me a gift meant to humiliate me. Now the roles had flipped. The greatest revenge hadn't been destroying him or Crescent. It hadn't been lawsuits or firestorms. No, the greatest revenge was thriving, forcing accountability, and watching him climb his way up from the hole he dug himself, step by painful step. Sometimes revenge isn't about burning bridges. Sometimes it's about rebuilding them stronger, but only under your rules. As Karen once asked me, "Are you happy with how it turned out?" That night, walking past the lit-up skyline, I finally answered, yes, not because they suffered, but because real change actually happened, and because I built a life on my terms. That was my gift, my revenge, my triumph. And that's how I turned the worst betrayal of my life into the best decision I ever made. Sometimes revenge isn't about tearing everything down, it's about proving you can stand taller than the people who tried to crush you. If this story hit home for you, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, what's your version of turning a setback into a comeback? I'd love to hear your story.